Hi, I'm Rob Northrop, and I'm going to read about half of my short story, Little Heist in the Big Woods, hoping that it will entice you to buy the short story collection of the same name, similar name, which you can find at www.drivethroughfiction.com. That's THRU. And you can search for Little Heist or search for Rob Northrop, and I think you'll find it. It's only $2.99 for a PDF. I've heard people discussing that you should price your PDFs at $9.99 because people think price indicates what you're really paying for. If you price it too low, people will think it's low quality. I think you're too smart for that, so I'm going to continue it at $2.99 for now, and I hope you will enjoy this story and you'll be excited enough to buy the darn thing. Little Heist in the Big Woods by Rob Northrop. "What's a deadfall?" Laura asked Pa. Pa slammed his broad axe into a chunk of wood, sending 2 even pieces falling to the sides. Mary scooped up the pieces and stacked them on the pile while Laura set another round on the block. "Why, a deadfall is a kind of a trap." Pa kept splitting wood, and the girls kept stacking them while he spoke. "Not as fancy as the steel ones that clamp on an animal's leg, but easy to make from a few tree limbs and big rocks. Some people use a heavy log. That's fine if it has a flat side, but if it's rounded, that might not land square on top of the animal you're trying to kill. It might fall on his leg or tail, he might get away. I like to use a flat rock with some other rocks or logs stacked on it. You use a smaller branch to prop it up, make sure it's balanced up there, not held up too securely. Then you tie some bait at the base of it, or attach the bait to the middle of the branch." He set the axe beside the block and waved the girls to follow him. Pa lifted a carrot from the garden as they marched past, into the shadows of the woods. Most people find a tree limb with a little branch coming off the side of it. Pa picked a branch off the forest floor, then tossed it aside and found a more suitable one. "Say you wanted rabbit stew tomorrow. You'd sharpen this little branch on the side, then skewer a carrot on it. Maybe put a little string or twine around it to make sure the bait don't come loose easy. A bunny comes along and pulls on the carrot. The bunny's actually pulling the whole branch." Pa looked at the leaves and ferns in between the tree trunks until he found a spot where rabbits might hop through. He found a rock with a flattish side and leaned it on top of the stick with the carrot coming off the side. If you have it propped up right, the branch falls out of the way, and the rocks fall down on the bunny. Dead fall. Works for man-traps, too. Mary couldn't miss the chance to show off what she knew. She said, "That's what killed one of the men you went hunting treasure with, right, Pa?" Laura said, "It wasn't a treasure hunt, it was a heist." "Don't get steamed about it, Half-Pint," Pa said. "Mary's right that your grandpa used a deadfall trap to kill one of the crew. And Laura's right that Mick always called it a heist. But a heist is a kind of treasure hunt." "Oh, Pa, tell us about the heist," Mary cried. "Please, Pa, tell us again," Laura said. Pa flung the last 2 bits of wood on the pile and strode toward the house. "You don't want to hear that. I told you every detail I remember. How about the story of the 2nd Wisconsin Infantry at the Battle of the Wilderness? Men with festering wounds pulling themselves through a swamp riddled with bodies." The girls tugged at their father's sleeves and made an awful noise until he laughed and said, "All right." Pa sat on the ground with his back against the wall of the little house. Laura and Mary climbed on his lap carefully so he wouldn't spill any tobacco as he packed it in his pipe. Grandpa's Gold and the Shady Dealers. When I first decided to get my hands on Grandpa's gold, I was plowing that field south of the old bee tree. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought someone had planted rocks in our field every 5 feet just to spite me. Rocks the size of a little girl's head. Maybe they thought they'd harvest a crop of little girls. I'd spent more time than usual clearing trees and stubborn stumps that wouldn't let go of the ground, and it was still a nightmare to plow. I kicked one of the rocks, which hurt me more than the rock. Then I scared the horse with all my bellowing, and I sat right down and despaired, which is a sin because it means you've lost hope in your God. But ours is a good God, because right at that low moment, he brought to my mind the gleam of gold I had seen 2 months before in Grandpa's root cellar. I thought about what life would be like if I had enough to buy a new farm, one that was already cleared and proven fertile. Every year at harvest time I could buy nice things for you and your ma. If the Lord decided to send a little hail or a brush fire or a drought, even if we lost the whole crop, we'd have a little something to fall back on. I don't want to stop farming or become a layabout, living in town and paying people to do everything for me. I just want a little peace. On the other side of the coin, there's my father. A man could set off in any direction from here as far as he could walk in a day or a week or a month, and he wouldn't find a bigger rascal than your grandpa. I suppose growing up the way he did would turn anyone sour. His father was such a hard-nose, when he caught the boys sledding on the Sabbath, he waited until after sundown to whip 'em. He figured the act of whipping 'em constituted working on the Sabbath, which would be a sin. Now there's plenty of tall tales of how your grandpa came by his gold. I can put them to rest. He didn't mine it, He didn't catch a leprechaun. He didn't find it under a rock or kill anybody. He earned it the old-fashioned way, running a gambling hell in Chicago. Or at least he dealt cards there for a while until he could purchase shares in 2 or 3 or more gambling houses. So the next time our friend Mr. Edwards came high-stepping out of the big woods, just in time for supper, I turned him right back around. He protested until he saw me wrap up some cheese and sausage and biscuits for him. I told him where to find Doc Tan and Mick, and where I wanted to meet the 3 of them in Plum City the following day. Respectable people used to take rooms for the night at McBride House, back when a regular carriage route passed through Plum City. Lumber started picking up after the war and changed everyone's reasons for passing through. On the morning we met there, the only people sleeping at McBride House were the ones too heavy for the barmaid to roll out of the saloon. Except there was no barmaid and no saloon. Patrons sat at the dining room table, or a few smaller side tables crammed in there. The lady of the house was generating an unholy stench from the kitchen, boiling some fish that had been preserved in lye. If you were that desperate for a drink, you could brave the fumes and buy cider or applejack from her. She kept a few bottles of wine for the high rollers. I arrived early enough to find Mick and Edwards still upright. Edwards stuck his fingers in his mouth and whistled to catch my attention, though I was looking right at him. His right coat sleeve had been bloody the day before, but the blood had mostly faded into the background of stains. No telling whether he had washed it intentionally or just passed out in a puddle. He sat at the side of the dining room table with Mick at the head of the table. Mick shushed his whistling. He probably wanted to avoid drawing attention, or maybe he didn't want to compete for attention. A man would have to be blind to have missed Mick's golden derby hat, blue and green checked vest with matching trousers, or his double-breasted frock coat with a color between indigo and aubergine. Doc Tan entered the saloon brushing dust off his wool coat, looking around the place like he was the white man condescending to visit a bunch of freedmen beneath his station, instead of the other way around. I stepped past the doctor to enter the foyer, where I locked the front door. "You don't all know each other," I began, taking a seat, "but you know me. I hope you'll trust my judgment in bringing the others into this enterprise." Mick said, "Without question, Charles. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine." Convincing Doc was more important to me, but it would have been impolitic to bust Mick's bubble. I poured a glass of port for myself and Doc Tan. Mick and Edwards had put away half a bottle of apple brandy. "We need to work out some details," I said, "but I've got a rough plan for how it should work. I'll be on the inside keeping everyone busy, signaling to you boys when there's trouble or when the path is clear. Mick worked at Dad's panel house in Green Bay a few years back, so he's familiar with the kinds of locks and traps Dad uses. Dr. Tan can patch us up if any of us get shot. Edwards ain't much to look at, but he's a scrapper, and he can talk a new mother into handing over her babe." Mick asked, "Besides the 4 of us, how many more do we need?" They displayed poker faces for a moment until Edwards opened. "The more the merrier, I'd think. 2 or 3 more men would mean 2 or 3 more loads carried away with us." Tan said, "The more men we involve, the smaller each man's share. And each man involved is another liability. Someone who could potentially get caught, or brag to the wrong person, or succumb to pressure from lawmen. Spoil the deal for the rest of us. I should think 4 is the maximum number. Maybe too many." "Agreed," said Mick. "Charles listed the roles each of us should have in the heist. I know the old man's ways even better than his son knows. I'm indispensable to this operation. Charles, too, because it would be risky to attempt without him signaling us from inside the main house. But if we get in and out quietly, we'll have no need for a doctor. Maybe 3 would be the ideal number." The doctor and Mick locked eyes and seemed to fall under a spell, like a witch had commanded them not to blink or look away from each other. "I lost my mind in a crap game," Edwards announced. He let it hang in the air for a while, as if that settled the dispute. "Any valuable skills I had were lost along with it. I can still carry plenty and wrestle men twice my size. But if you don't need those services, I'll be on my way and thank you for the company." I said, "Sit your services back down. I'm willing to give each of you an equal share of this, but it won't happen without me at the head of it. I say everyone in this room is necessary. Are you gentlemen interested in working together on this, or is it off?" Mick and Doc Tan nodded. Edwards waved his assent, not wanting to interrupt his drinking long enough to nod. We ironed out the plan, the when and who and how, without further fuss. Exchanging rocks for gold was Doc's idea. Mary said, "Tell about the rocks." "I still don't understand the rocks," said Laura. Pa said, "We'll get to the rocks." So if you want to find out how the heist went, who got killed by the deadfall, how this fits seamlessly into an actual chapter, the chapter of Little House in the Big Woods, about the sugaring off dance, then you should go buy my book, Little Heist in the Big Woods and Other Revisionist Atrocities, by Rob Northrop, which you can find at drivethroughfiction.com. DRIVETHRUFICTION.com. I forgot how to spell fiction for a minute there. That doesn't bode well. And look up Little Heist, Heist, and you'll find it. And it's only $2.99, and you should buy it. And it's in PDF format, which everybody can get PDF format. Come on. So I hope you enjoy it. And also, this is listen to, what's that other thing I do? It's called This Gun in My Hand, a pulp audio drama podcast of which I am the creator, the entire cast and crew. Thank you. Bye.